Good afternoon, everyone, and good morning for those of you in the time zone. My name is Steve Moore. I'm an attorney with the Native American Rights Fund. Kaylee Salazar, is helping to keep me out of trouble technologically this afternoon. We have on the webinar today Bill Romanelli. Bill is with the National Shooting Sports Foundation. He's directing the foundation's Project Safe, ChildSafe program. He's been with the Project ChildSafe program since 2013. The bulk of his work involves enforcement, retailers, gun ranges, hunting clubs, and conservation groups to involve them in promoting the Project ChildSafe message on responsible gun storage and in making available free gun locks and information to them. In the past 5 years, he's added more than 8,500 new partners to the Project ChildSafe program. In early 2018, thanks to a grant from the Bureau of Justice Assistance at the U.S. Department of Justice, Bill began working with tribal organizations to discuss the role responsible gun storage can play in preventing accidents and helping prevent children and young adults. The interest of the Native American Rights Fund in this area stems from the fact that we administer grants also from the Bureau of Justice Assistance in matters pertaining to the development of tribal courts and tribal court representation. And he's to be bringing this webinar and co-sponsoring this webinar with and the National Shooting Sports Foundation. On the program logistics side, we would ask people to hold their questions till the end of the webinar. Bill has about a 20-minute presentation to go over. We also encourage people to use the chat function on their screens and to send questions to us via chat. And then at the end, we'll read the questions on the chat function, and then we'll have a conversation with Bill. So at this point, welcome Bill Romanelli, and I'm going to turn the webinar presentation over to Bill now. Take it away, Bill.
Thank you, Steve, and thank you everyone for joining us this morning. Again, my name is Bill Romanelli. I'm with the National Shooting Sports Foundation working on the Project ChildSafe program. And before I get started, let me just, give my very sincere thanks to the Native American Rights Fund, and particularly Steve and his team of Kaylee and Nicole, who have made all of this possible, especially on the tech side, which I could never have done on my own. So I really appreciate that. I thank you all for joining me, and I'm glad to have this opportunity to talk with all of you, because my hope is that after this conversation today, we can all start working together to the benefit of the communities that you serve. So normally at this point, I would ask for a show of hands of who's familiar with or heard of Project ChildSafe, but since we can't do that, I'm just going to jump into why I'm here today and why this issue is important. And fundamentally, it comes down to the notion that unsecured guns in the home can pose an accident risk to children and create opportunities for theft. And most guns used in crimes, as I think we all know, are stolen guns. And it can lead to other kinds of misuse, which from our standpoint really orbits around the concept of suicide attempts. And I think I can speak for everybody involved in this call when I say we would all like to see less suicide in our communities. If I could boil Project ChildSafe down into one simple sentence, it's about keeping guns out of the wrong hands. But with that, I want to emphasize this is not a program about gun ownership in terms of who should or who should not own guns. This is really to work with law enforcement and with gun owners to share information on gun safety, to provide free gun locks and other resources to the communities that want them. And as Steve mentioned, we really put a focus on tribal organizations and tribal communities at the beginning of this year, because as we were looking at our work and our partnership with VGAA, we realized that our tribal communities have really been underserved by this program. And so we want to work with as many of you as possible in an effort to change that. Our hope is that, again, working together with you, we can help prevent accidents, help provide a pause that can help prevent a suicide attempt, and I'll talk more about that a little bit later. And, of course, help prevent guns from being stolen and used later in crimes. You'll hear me say this a couple of times, but my real goal at the end of the day today is that everybody who's on this call places an order to get some of our free gun locks. There's no cost. We really want to get these out into your communities. But I know before we can get to that, I need to explain what the program is, how we work, answer your questions, and so on. So let me just jump right into that. So what is Project ChildSafe? As you've heard already, it's a program of the National Shooting Sports Foundation, which is the trade association of the firearms industry. It was started in 1999 as Project HomeSafe, but became Project ChildSafe about 3 years later. It was a program developed for gun owners by gun owners that at the end of it all really has two goals. One is to offer firearm safety educational tools to full communities, either on the individual level or working through partner organizations, primarily law enforcement, but there are other kinds of organizations we work with. And then, of course, kind of the cornerstone of the program are the free gun locks and safety kits that we give away. It's a program that, as I was telling Steve earlier, over the years has given away more than 37 million of these gun locks through partnerships with more than 15,000 law enforcement agencies and other partners. It has just been phenomenally successful in terms of the response and the value that law enforcement and crime prevention community gets from this program. We'd like to see it continue to grow. We definitely have to deal with issues of supply and demand, but that said, through a grant with DJA, we do have locks available that are specifically earmarked for working with organizations like yours. So if you're interested in locks, we can get them to you. I want to emphasize also that this is a real solution to making communities safer, primarily because the way the locks work. We use cable-style locks that will feed right through the action mechanism of most firearms. The exception will be breech actions, but I think every other kind of firearm this will work on. And when the lock is installed properly, it has the effect of rendering the firearm inoperable. And even more so, to install the lock properly, the gun has to be unloaded. So it's actually a double layer of protection on that. So in a matter of less than a minute, a loaded gun left on a desktop can be rendered inoperable, unloaded, and safe. And it has an automatic effect in making that home and therefore that community and that neighborhood a little bit safer. We're also, as I said, a partnership with law enforcement. We've had partnerships with more than 15,000 agencies and a host of other kinds of community organizations. But I want to say that while I've mentioned that the locks are kind of the cornerstone of the program, it's really not just about the locks. We provide education on a range of the safe storage options available because for some folks, you know, quite frankly, a cable lock might not be what they're interested in. But there are other options out there, including lock boxes and safes and other devices. I think most of you are very familiar with that already yourselves. Our real hope in working with you is to get the information into the communities you serve and encourage people to store firearms safely and securely with whatever storage mechanism or system works with them. If they don't have something, but they want something right away, then that's where the cable locks come in handy. So let me talk a little bit about who's involved. Again, as you've heard, we've been working under a grant arrangement and agreement with the U.S. Department of Justice's assistance. And as we've done our outreach into tribal organizations, we've been very fortunate and thankful to have relationships with the Tribal Law and Policy Institute, where we have information on their Walking on Common Ground website, the Indian Health Service Department of Behavioral Health, where we've been working with Pamela Endefhorn. Many of you may know her. She may even be on this call. We're hoping to do a lot more work with Pam in the weeks and months ahead. We've also been working with the Oklahoma Indian Health Service, the Chickasaw Nation, the Salt River Pima Maricopa Indian Community, the National Indian Housing Council, and of course the Native American Rights Fund. That's in addition to close to 9,000 sporting goods retailers, gun ranges, conservation groups, health centers, faith organizations, hospitals, community groups, and other organizations who understand that this program's value in making communities safer. So why are we doing this? Well, quite frankly, we're doing it because it works. If you look at the statistics over the years, the number of firearm accidents has been plummeting across the United States, even as the number of firearm sales has been going up and up and up every year. Now, Project ChildSafe cannot take sole responsibility or credit for that by any means, but there's no question that the work that's been ongoing to educate people about firearm safety, about storing firearms safely in the home, is having a result, to the point where last year the National Safety Council issued a report that found that these kinds of accidents had hit their lowest level since record keeping began. And that is definitely a trend that we want to see continue going in the right direction, because, you know, while those numbers are going down, we're not at zero yet. It's still a problem, and it still needs to be addressed. And we believe that all accidents, and in a large number of cases, even suicide, can be preventable tragedies. On the subject of suicide, you know, I did a little research going into, you know, getting ready for this conversation today. You know the issues probably as well as, or certainly better than I do, but, you know, some of the headlines I saw pointed out that suicide among young Native Americans is double the national average. You know, they talk about being at crisis levels. From my perspective, you know, I know the research shows that of all suicide attempts, roughly 2/3 of them involve a firearm. And so it just makes sense for us to be working together to get information out there and taking whatever steps we can to try and work together on that problem. Obviously, suicide prevention requires multiple approaches. It's not just about putting a lock on a gun, but there's no question that responsible storage can play an important part in that process. And the reason I say that is because we've been working over the last couple of years with the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention on a couple of initiatives. And one of the things that I've learned from that process is that between the moment when somebody decides that they want to commit suicide and the moment when they actually act on that decision, you know, there's a window of time in there. Sometimes it can be very short, a matter of seconds. Sometimes it can be, you know, much longer than that. The point is that the longer that pause or that window is, the greater the odds that that person is going to change their mind and not do it. And to the degree that a lock on a firearm or that a firearm is stored in a safe that's inaccessible provides that pause or lengthens that pause, then it is having an impact in helping to prevent suicides. So we've got brochures and information on that I'll talk a little bit more about. But obviously, I know this is a very important issue for the Native American community, and it's something that I think we're in a good position to work together on. So how do we want to work for you? I should probably preface this by saying, quite frankly, we need to work with you, because an effort like this needs local partners. The NSSF can't just walk into a community and expect to be embraced with arms wide. There's levels of trust, there's levels of credibility, and so that's why since the beginning we've always said, who are the local partners that we can work with? Likewise, this kind of an effort works best when it reflects the community's unique culture and voice and reaches people through the organizations and the leaders that they already recognize and that they already trust. And I say that because, you know, it's not just about law enforcement being partners. There are other kinds of organizations that can be partners in getting this message out and even making the locks available, because at the end of the day, this is really everyone's concern, whether somebody owns guns or not, or even whether or not they have young kids at home or not. This is everyone's concern. And I say that because, you know, there's a lot of parents out there who don't own guns, but if they have children who go to a friend's house and the friend's parents own guns, then it's important that their children know what to do if that gun is pulled out of a closet or out of a drawer or something like that. You know, grandparents may not have young kids at home, but young kids may come and visit. So again, it's an issue that's important to everyone. So how we want to work with you, obviously, is we want to, you know, work directly with you to make our firearm safety resources and tools and information available to you. We have a whole resource page on our website with all kinds of videos on how to talk to your kids and other tools on there. We'd also like to, of course, be working with as many of you as possible to get locks to you so those can be distributed in your communities. But it also comes down to you probably have partnerships in the communities that you serve, whether it's with local law enforcement or a local health clinic or some other organization that you're connected with in the communities that you serve, who should be a partner with us as well. And I say that because sometimes, quite frankly, law enforcement, despite the great work they do, members of the community might feel a little nervous about going down to a police station to pick up a gun lock. My view on this is I don't care how somebody got their hands on a gun. If they have a gun in their house, I'd like to make sure that they have the tools they need to store it responsibly. So if that means that they go down to the local hospital clinic and pick up a lock, that's great. If they don't want to go down to a law enforcement agency, or if there's a legal counseling center or something like that. That's where I think we could probably benefit from working with you guys the most, is plugging us into those other organizations so that we're creating a network that's making these locks and these tools available in multiple places in the communities that you serve. Because we've seen over and over and over again that if the community embraces it, it will have good results. And I think all of you are in the best position to help make that happen. And something else that I normally, emphasize specifically for people working in law enforcement, but given that everyone is peripherally involved with that, it's worth saying that engaging and being involved in this program is a chance to do something positive. When law enforcement agencies are called out to the scene of an accident where a kid found a gun and a tragedy has occurred, it's just the worst kind of call you can go on. But more than that, you're seeing families on what is unquestionably one of the worst days of their entire lives. And to the degree that making these locks available, giving away free stuff, for lack of a better way of saying it, is a positive experience. It's also having the benefit of maybe preventing one of those calls from coming in. To that point, we can provide all the materials and the tools you need, starting with the gun locks. And let me just tell you how simple it is to get involved and how to get started, because it really only takes 2 minutes. If you just go onto projectchildsafe.org, there's a tile there for law enforcement. If you're like me and you like multitasking during conference calls, you can do this right now in your chair. Or if you have a smartphone, you can do it that way, right there in your seat. There's a little form that comes up. It takes 2 minutes to fill out. And there's a comment box in there where you can say how many locks you want. I would suggest, if you're interested in some of the materials that we have, check out our resource library first, which is just right there also on projectchildsafe.org. There's a big tile there that says resources. That's got our full library of videos, handouts, and flyers and other kind of tools available. Our most popular stuff is right there at the top. If you're interested in getting your hands on any of those materials, when you fill out the lock order form, just say how many locks you want, and then make a list of the materials you would like sent. That would include suicide prevention brochures and firearm safety in the home brochures and a few other things. And I should say that even though this is a law enforcement order form, given that we are trying to do so much more work in the Native American community, don't let that be an issue. We've already allocated a great number of our locks and resources for tribal organizations, whether they're law enforcement or serving the tribal communities in some other way. So again, the locks are available for you, and we would love to get some to you. So with that, I think I even went through this a little quicker than I thought. Let me just emphasize that our sole objective is to get these locks and resources into your communities. And we really look forward to the chance to work together with all of you to do that. So with that, thank you very much for your time, and I am more than happy to answer some questions. I still can't see the chat function on my end. Kaylee, are any questions coming in? If you're speaking, I can't hear you. I'm getting nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, if anybody has a question, the callers are unmuted at this time, and now is the time to ask anything that you would like to clarify or any questions you may have.
Well, folks are thinking about that. Let me touch on some of the most common questions I get. Number one is, do you have to be in law enforcement to order the locks? And as I was saying earlier, in the case of reaching the Native American community, the answer is no. But for other situations, that would be the case. Another question I get is, you provide the locks, who pays for the shipping? We cover all of that through the grant, so this is literally no cost to you if you want to order the locks. All the locks and materials come on our dime. They take about 2 to 3 weeks to arrive. I will also say that the materials come separate from the locks, and usually what happens is the materials show up first. So I usually get a phone call a week from somebody saying, hey, I got all these materials that wear my locks. Rest assured that if you're getting the materials, then the locks will be arriving in a couple of days. And then the other question I get very often is do people need to show an ID or some kind of information in order to get a lock when they come in to pick one up? And again, our preference is that this is a no questions asked kind of policy. If you have the locks available, if somebody wants them, let them have them. Again, I'm not really interested in how they ended up getting a gun in their house. My interest is in that if they have one in their house, that it's stored properly and that a kid's not going to pick it up and a tragedy results from that.
Great. All right. Well, I haven't seen any other up. If anybody out there has anything to ask, please ask Bill. We have him on the line. I have a couple thank yous rolling in, Bill.
Great. You're very welcome. Thank you for listening. All right. Well, I think that's probably a wrap. Steve, do you want to close anything out? This has been recorded and will be available. We'll get the links out. But Steve, I'll turn it back to you to wrap us up.
Yeah, if there are no questions over the phone, and we're not seeing any questions via chat, we'll close the webinar. We really appreciate the 17 folks who listened in today, and from NARF standpoint, we think this is a very valuable program, and we hope folks take advantage. It's a free program, and get a hold of Bill and get those gun locks and safety educational material heading into your communities. Thank you all very much, and have a good day.
So, thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Son eu vou dar mensagem à Suzana. Os bairros